The great chamber was the largest room Danny Carter had ever seen. It stretched in every direction like a small city made of crystal and light. Thousands of seats rose in circles around a central platform, and in those seats sat creatures from across the galaxy. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had no bodies at all, just floating clouds of glowing energy. Danny had studied pictures of aliens his whole life, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. He stood on the central platform with his two companions. Dr. Amy Sullivan was beside him, her hand shaking slightly as she held her translation device. Behind them stood Commander Kevin Reyes, his back straight and his face calm. Though Danny knew he was just as nervous as the rest of them. Today was the day humanity would ask to join the Galactic Collective. 40 years ago, humans had discovered how to travel faster than light. They had spread to nearby stars, built colonies, and dreamed of meeting other intelligent life. When they finally made contact with the Collective, they learned that the galaxy was full of ancient civilizations, empires that had existed for thousands of years, species that had conquered entire regions of space before humans had learned to make fire. Now, humanity wanted to be part of that larger family. Danny cleared his throat and began to speak. His voice echoed through the massive chamber, translated instantly into hundreds of alien languages. "Honored members of the Galactic Collective," he said, "I am Danny Carter, ambassador of Earth and the human species. We come before you today with open hands and hopeful hearts." He paused and looked around the chamber. Most of the alien senators were not looking at him. Some were talking to each other. Others were looking at screens or simply staring into space. A group of tall, silver-skinned beings with 4 arms seemed to be sharing a private joke. Danny pushed down his disappointment and continued. "Humanity is young," he admitted. "We have only traveled among the stars for a short time. We have much to learn, but we also have much to offer. We bring new ideas, new art, new ways of thinking. We bring the strength of a species that has faced great challenges and survived. We bring the promise of friendship and cooperation." Amy stepped forward and activated a holographic display. Images of Earth appeared in the air. Beautiful mountains, deep oceans, cities full of life and light. She showed the history of human space travel, the colonies they had built, the scientific discoveries they had made. "We offer full technological exchange," Danny continued. "Everything we know, shared freely with our new partners. We offer trade agreements that benefit all sides. We offer our ships for exploration and our soldiers for mutual defense. We ask only to be treated as equals, as partners in the great journey of civilization." He finished his speech and stood in silence, waiting for a response. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Danny heard a sound that made his stomach sink. Laughter. Quiet at first, then growing louder. The tall silver beings were laughing openly now. The insect-like creatures in the upper seats were making clicking sounds that the translator identified as amusement. Even the floating energy beings seemed to pulse with what might have been humor. A large reptilian alien rose from a prominent seat. Danny recognized him from the briefing files. High Senator Vornak of the Dominion of 12 Systems, one of the most powerful beings in the Collective. "How charming," Vornak said, his voice deep and cold. "The little humans have come to ask for a seat at the adult table." More laughter filled the chamber. "Tell me, Ambassador," Vornak continued, "how many star systems does humanity control?" "One fully developed system," Danny replied steadily. "With 3 colony worlds in development. 1 system." Vornak let the words hang in the air. "My people controlled 1 system once. That was 11,000 years ago. Today, we rule over 600 worlds. The Velothians have 2,000. The Crickstar Hive spans an entire arm of the galaxy. And you come here with your 1 system and ask to be our equals?" Danny kept his voice calm. Numbers are not everything, High Senator. The worth of a species cannot be measured only in territory. Perhaps not, Verenik agreed with a thin smile. But power can. What power do humans have? What do you offer that we do not already possess in greater quantity and quality? Fresh perspectives, Amy spoke up, her voice stronger than Danny expected. New approaches to old problems. We have made discoveries in theoretical physics that your scientists have found interesting. We have developed interesting? A Velothian senator interrupted her with all four arms spread wide in a gesture of dismissal. A child's drawing is interesting. That does not mean we hang it in a museum. The chamber erupted in laughter again. Danny felt Kevin tense behind him. He reached back and touched the commander's arm gently, a signal to stay calm. Getting angry would only make things worse. We are prepared to wait, Danny said. We understand that trust must be earned. We ask only for the opportunity to prove ourselves. Voronok shook his massive head slowly. The Galactic Collective has standards, Ambassador. We cannot lower them for every primitive species that learns to build a rocket. Perhaps in a few thousand years, when humanity has grown up, you may apply again. Until then, I suggest you return to your little world and try not to destroy yourselves. The vote was called. It was quick and brutal. Not a single senator voted in favor of human membership. Not one voice spoke in their defense. The rejection was total and complete. Danny stood on the platform as the votes were counted, his face showing nothing. Inside, he felt something heavy settle in his chest. Not anger. Something quieter. Something patient. Thank you for your time, he said simply. As he turned to leave, he heard one more burst of laughter behind him. He did not look back. Outside the chamber, Amy's eyes were wet with frustrated tears. Kevin's jaw was tight with barely controlled fury. What now? Kevin asked quietly. Danny looked up at the alien sky, filled with unfamiliar stars. Now we wait, he said. And we watch. And we remember. He did not say what he was thinking. He did not need to. The others understood. Humanity had come in peace. They had been laughed at and dismissed. They would not forget this day. But more importantly, neither would the galaxy. Eventually, the galaxy would remember this day too, and the memory would taste very different than the laughter that filled the chamber. Now Danny walked toward their shuttle without another word. Behind him, the great crystal dome of the Senate glittered in the starlight, beautiful and proud and completely unaware of what it had just set in motion. 6 months passed on Velaris Prime. The human delegation stayed, accepting the role of observers. They had no vote, no voice, and no official standing. But Danny believed that patience would eventually change things. He believed that if the aliens saw how reasonable and helpful humans could be, their attitudes would soften. He was wrong. Every day, Danny and his team attended Senate sessions. They sat in a small section at the very back of the chamber, far from the important seats. They watched debates about trade agreements and territorial disputes. They listened to discussions about scientific research and cultural exchanges. They were never invited to participate. Amy spent her time working with junior alien scientists. She shared human research on physics and biology. She offered theories and data that Earth's best minds had developed. The young scientists were grateful and excited. Their seniors ignored her completely. When she submitted a paper to the collective's scientific database, it was deleted within hours. The reason given was simple. Contributions from non-members were not permitted. Kevin tried to establish connections with military officers from various species. He offered to share human tactical training methods. He suggested joint exercises that could help everyone prepare for potential threats. He was politely but firmly refused every time. One Velothian officer told him directly that training with humans would be embarrassing. like a warrior practicing with a child. The worst part was the growing threat that nobody seemed to take seriously. Reports came in every week about attacks on frontier colonies. A mysterious fleet of automated warships had appeared from uncharted space. The aliens called them the Void Swarm. The ships had no crews, no negotiations, no demands. They simply arrived, destroyed everything, and moved on. Colony after colony fell silent. Millions of lives were lost. Danny requested permission to address the Senate about the swarm. He had ideas. Human military history was full of examples of smaller forces defeating larger ones through clever strategy. He wanted to share what humanity had learned from centuries of warfare. His request was denied. The reason given was that non-members could not speak on security matters. He tried again, this time submitting a written proposal. It disappeared into the bureaucracy and was never seen again. Amy created a detailed analysis of the swarm's attack patterns. She identified weaknesses in their tactics and suggested countermeasures. She uploaded it to every database she could access. Every copy was deleted within a day. Kevin recorded training videos showing human combat techniques that might be useful against automated enemies. He sent them to every military contact he had made. None of them replied. The humans kept trying. They kept being ignored. Then came the day everything changed. It happened during a routine Senate session. The topic was minor, something about shipping regulations. Danny sat in the back with his team, half listening. When the Krigstar ambassador rose to speak, Ambassador Chidrick was a large insectoid creature with glossy black armor and sharp mandibles. He was known for his cruel humor and his hatred of what he called inferior species. Today, he seemed to be in a particularly nasty mood. Before we continue with official business, Chidrick announced, I wish to raise a matter of minor concern. The chamber quieted. Senators turned to listen. I have noticed that our human observers are still present. Chidrick continued, his mandibles clicking in what sounded like amusement. It has been many months now. I begin to wonder if they have forgotten the way home. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Perhaps we should draw them a map, someone called out. I doubt they could read it, Chidrick replied. After all, we are dealing with a species that discovered fire only a few hundred generations ago. Their ancestors were still living in caves while my people built our first interstellar empire. Danny remained still. His face showed nothing. I have studied these humans, Chidrick went on. They are fascinating in a way, like watching mold grow in a forgotten corner. They spread, they multiply, they believe themselves important. But mold is still mold. No amount of growth makes it anything more than a simple organism clinging to its little patch of dirt. The laughter was louder now. Even senators who usually remain neutral were joining in. My recommendation, Chidrick concluded, is that we encourage our human friends to return to their mudball planet. There they can wait for extinction like good primitives. The galaxy has no need for mold. The chamber erupted. Aliens stamped their feet, clicked their claws, flashed their lights in approval. High Senator Voronek was laughing openly, his reptilian body shaking with amusement. Danny stood up slowly. The laughter continued. No one really noticed at first, but something in the movement caught Voronek's attention. He looked toward the back of the chamber and saw the human ambassador standing perfectly still, his eyes moving across the room. Danny looked at every laughing face. He looked at the senators who had refused to hear him. He looked at the scientists who had deleted Amy's work. He looked at the officers who had rejected Kevin's help. He said nothing. His expression was calm, almost peaceful. Then he simply nodded to his team. Amy gathered her translation device and her files. Kevin picked up his bag. Without a word, without a gesture of anger or protest, the three humans walked toward the exit. The laughter began to fade as senators realized what was happening. A few called out jokes about the humans running away. Others made comments about sensitive primitives who could not take a joke. Danny did not respond. He did not look back. At the door, he paused for just a moment. He turned his head slightly, not quite looking at the chamber, and spoke in a voice that was quiet but somehow carried through the entire room. "Thank you for showing us who you are." Then he walked out, and the doors closed behind him. The Senate session continued after that. Business went back to normal. Within an hour, most of the aliens had forgotten about the humans entirely. They had no way of knowing that they would never see Danny Carter or any human again for a very long time. They had no way of knowing what that quiet departure would eventually cost them. Outside the chamber, Amy finally let her tears fall. Not from sadness, but from relief. It was over. The pretending was over. What do we do now? She asked. Danny looked at the alien sky one last time. "We go home," he said, "and we wait for them to understand what they have done." Kevin's face was hard. "And if they never understand?" Danny smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "They will," he said softly. "They will." Within 24 hours, every human in the collective's territory was gone. Ships departed. Stations went dark. Diplomatic channels closed. The last message from Earth was an automated response that would repeat for years to come. Humanity is no longer accepting communications from Galactic Collective affiliates. The galaxy had wanted silence from the humans. Now they would have it. At first, nobody noticed that the humans were gone. The Galactic Collective was vast, and humanity had been such a small part of it. Life continued as before. Senators debated. Merchants traded. Scientists researched. Everything seemed normal. And small things started going wrong. The first problem appeared on Velothia, the homeworld of the silver-skinned, four-armed species. Their greatest science academy had been working on a breakthrough in energy generation. For years, they had been close to solving a problem that had puzzled their physicists for centuries. Junior researchers had recently made unexpected progress, and senior scientists were excited about the possibilities. But now, suddenly, the progress stopped. The junior researchers could not explain why. The equations that had seemed so clear before now led nowhere. The insights that had seemed so brilliant now felt hollow. An investigation was launched. After weeks of careful study, the Academy made a disturbing discovery. The breakthrough ideas had not come from Velothian minds. They had come from subtle hints and suggestions provided by human researchers, who had been collaborating with the junior scientists. No one had realized it at the time. The humans had been so quiet, so humble, that their contributions had seemed like natural extensions of Velothian thought. Now, the humans were gone. And so was the guidance they had been providing. The Academy tried to contact Earth. Their messages went unanswered. Far across the galaxy, the Krikstar Hive faced a different problem. Their shipping lanes, which had been relatively safe for decades, were suddenly experiencing a surge in pirate attacks. Cargo ships were being ambushed. Trade routes were becoming dangerous. The military increased patrols, but they could not be everywhere at once. A clever analyst eventually found the answer. For years, human merchant vessels had been voluntarily sharing real-time navigation data with anyone who wanted it. This data showed where pirates were operating, where safe paths existed, where danger might be waiting. It was not official. No treaty required it. The humans had simply done it because they thought it was helpful. When the humans left, the data stopped flowing. The pirates noticed. They adapted. The Krikstar did not. The Dominion of 12 systems suffered next. A virus appeared in their agricultural networks, threatening food production on hundreds of worlds. The infection spread quickly, jumping from system to system. Panic began to build. Then, just as suddenly, the virus was contained. The defense systems activated an antivirus that had been sitting unused in the database. When technicians investigated, they found that the antivirus had been uploaded by Dr. Amy Sullivan. 3 months before the humans left Dot, she had seen the vulnerability and fixed it without being asked, without expecting thanks, without even mentioning it to anyone. But there would be no more updates, no more quiet fixes. The database was full of human contributions that no one had noticed, and all of them were slowly becoming outdated. The Void Swarm was the biggest problem of all. Without the distraction of human politics, the Senate finally began to take the swarm seriously. Reports showed that the attacks were increasing in frequency and power. Border systems were falling. Refugee ships were flooding inward. The combined fleets of the collective fought back, but they were losing. High Senator Voronek called an emergency session. For the first time, he admitted that the situation was serious. He demanded new strategies, new weapons, new ideas. The senators looked at each other. No one had any. Someone mentioned that the humans had submitted proposals about fighting the swarm. Perhaps those old documents could be found and reviewed. A search was conducted. Every database was checked. Nothing remained. All human contributions had been deleted according to standard policy for non-member submissions. Voronek ordered his staff to contact Earth directly. His messages received the same automated response that everyone else got. He sent diplomatic ships. They found nothing. The human colonies were empty. The space stations were abandoned. Earth's orbital platforms were gone. When the ships scanned Earth itself, they detected billions of human life signs on the surface, but no activity in space. No ships launched. No signals were broadcast. No communications were attempted. It was as if humanity had decided to simply stop existing as a spacefaring species. Voronek could not understand it. No species had ever voluntarily abandoned space travel. No civilization had ever chosen to pull back from the stars. It made no sense. He decided to go to Earth himself. The journey took 2 weeks. Voronek spent the time reviewing everything the collective knew about humans. He read their history of wars and peace. He studied their art and literature. He examined their technology, which now seemed less primitive than he had assumed. A pattern began to emerge. Humans were stubborn. When they faced adversity, they did not surrender. They waited. They planned. They struck back when the moment was right. Voronek began to feel something he had not felt in centuries. Fear. His ship arrived in the human solar system. It was quiet, empty. The sensors showed nothing but Earth and its single moon hanging in the darkness. He landed near a human city and found Ambassador Danny Carter waiting for him at a small outdoor cafe. The human was drinking a dark liquid from a cup and reading something on a portable screen. He looked up as Voronek approached and gestured to an empty chair. "Hi, Senator," Danny said calmly. "I wondered when you would come." Voronek remained standing. His massive body towered over the seated human. "What is happening here?" he demanded. "Why have your people abandoned space?" Danny took a sip of his drink. "We have not abandoned anything. We have simply chosen to be alone for a while. The galaxy is at war. The Void Swarm threatens everyone." "Yes," Danny agreed. "It does. We need help. We need new ideas, new strategies. You do." Voronek's claws flexed in frustration. "Will you not assist us? We face extinction." Danny set down his cup and looked at the alien with calm, patient eyes. 6 months ago, I stood in your Senate chamber and offered humanity's help. I offered our ideas, our technology, our partnership. Do you remember what happened?" Voronek said nothing. "Your ambassador called us mold. You laughed. You deleted our research. You rejected every offer we made." Danny's voice remained steady. Now you come to our world and ask for the help you refused before. Why should we give it? Because millions will die. Millions are already dying. They have been dying for months. We tried to warn you. You did not listen. Voronak felt the fear growing stronger. What do you want? Apologies? Membership in the collective? Name your price. Danny smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. We want nothing from you, High Senator. We will simply wait. Wait for what? For the galaxy to learn what it should have learned long ago. That the quietest voice is sometimes the most important one. That kindness should not be mistaken for weakness. That respect is not given freely. It must be earned. Danny stood and began to walk away. Then he paused and looked back. The Void Swarm will not destroy you completely. But by the time they are finished, the great empires will be humbled. And then perhaps we will talk again. Voronak watched the human disappear into the city. He returned to his ship in silence, his mind filled with dark thoughts as his vessel lifted off from Earth. His sensors detected something strange. A flicker of energy near the sun. For just a moment, the instrument showed thousands of massive objects hidden in some kind of dimensional fold. Then the reading vanished, and there was nothing but empty space. Voronak stared at the screen for a long time. He thought about mold. He thought about primitives. He thought about the quiet confidence in Danny Carter's eyes. And he understood, finally, that the galaxy had made a terrible mistake. 1 year after the humans left, the Galactic Collective was losing the war that the Void Swarm had conquered 17 border systems. Their automated warships moved through space like a disease, consuming everything in their path. Planets were stripped of resources. Populations were scattered or destroyed. The great fleets that had once seemed invincible were broken and bleeding. Every strategy failed. Every weapon was countered. The swarm learned from each battle, adapting and improving. Their numbers seemed endless. For every ship destroyed, 2 more appeared. The Senate chamber on Velaris Prime was half empty now. Many senators had fled to safer systems. Others had died defending their homeworlds. The beautiful crystal dome showed cracks from a recent orbital bombardment. The swarm had not attacked the capital directly yet, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time. High Senator Voronak had aged badly in the past year. His scales had lost their shine. His eyes were tired and haunted. He had tried everything he could think of. He had begged other empires for help. He had sought out ancient technologies. He had even tried to contact species that the collective had rejected in the past, hoping someone might have an answer. Nothing worked out in quiet moments. He thought about his visit to Earth. He thought about Danny Carter sitting calmly in that cafe, drinking his dark liquid and talking about patience. He thought about the sensor reading his ship had detected near the sun. Thousands of objects, hidden somehow. A fleet? A trap? A miracle waiting to happen? He had sent ships to investigate, but they found nothing. Either the reading had been a glitch, or the humans had technology far beyond anything the collective possessed. That second possibility kept Voronak awake at night. He had researched human history more thoroughly since his visit. What he found disturbed him deeply. Humans were not the simple primitives he had assumed. Their history was filled with examples of smaller groups defeating larger ones through patience and cleverness. They had survived ice ages and plagues and wars that should have destroyed them. They had gone from caves to starships in an impossibly short time, and they had always been underestimated. One night, unable to sleep, Voronak made a decision. He would return to Earth alone. No escort, no weapons, no threats. He would go as a supplicant, not a senator. He would humble himself completely and beg for help. The journey felt longer this time. Each day brought news of another defeat, another system lost, another million refugees fleeing toward the core. Voronek listened to the reports and said nothing. What was there to say? He landed in the same city as before. The same cafe was still there. And Danny Carter was waiting for him again, sitting in the same chair, drinking from the same cup. But the human looked different now. His hair had turned gray. Lines had appeared on his face. The year had changed him too. "Hi, Senator," Danny said. "Please, sit down." This time, Voronek sat. His massive body seemed smaller somehow, bent by the weight of failure. "I have come to ask for help," he said simply. "Not as a senator, not as a representative of the collective. I come as one living being asking another for mercy." Danny studied him for a long moment. "Tell me what has happened." Voronek told him everything. The battles lost. The systems conquered. The lives destroyed. He spoke of refugees and orphans. He spoke of proud civilizations reduced to desperate survivors. He spoke of the fear that gripped every world, the certainty that extinction was coming. Danny listened without interrupting. When Voronek finished, the human was silent for a long time. "I must be honest with you," Danny finally said. "When I was here before, I told you that humanity would wait. That was true. But I did not tell you everything." Voronek looked up, a spark of hope flickering in his tired eyes. "We have been watching your galaxy for much longer than anyone knows," Danny continued. "Long before we revealed ourselves, we studied you. We learned your languages, your politics, your technologies. We knew exactly what we were walking into when we came to the Senate. Then why did you come as petitioners? Why did you act weak?" Danny smiled sadly. "We did not act weak. We acted humble. There is a difference. We believed that cooperation was better than domination. We hoped that if we approached you with respect, you would eventually return it. We were fools." Voronek admitted. "Yes, you were." The words hung in the air between them. "The technology you displayed when you first came to us," Voronek said slowly. "It was not your best technology, was it?" "No, it was not. How advanced are you really?" Danny stood and gestured for Voronek to follow. They walked through the city streets until they reached a hillside overlooking a vast plain. Danny pointed to the sky. "Look carefully," he said. Voronek looked up. At first, he saw only stars. Then Danny pressed something on his wrist, and the sky changed. Ships appeared. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. They filled the darkness like a second galaxy made of metal and light. Massive vessels larger than anything the collective had ever built. Sleek fighters that seemed to shimmer with energy. Weapons platforms that made Voronek's military mind tremble with the implications, and all of them had been there the whole time. Hidden in dimensions the collective technology could not even detect. "We could have conquered the galaxy the day we arrived at your Senate," Danny said quietly. "We chose not to. We wanted partners, not subjects. We wanted friends, not slaves." Voronek could not speak. He could only stare at the fleet above him, the fleet that had been waiting patiently for over a year while the galaxy burned. Why? He finally managed. Why let so many die? Danny's face was hard. "Because your people needed to understand. If we had saved you immediately, you would have learned nothing. You would have seen us as tools to be used and discarded. You would have returned to your old ways as soon as the threat was gone. And now? Now you have suffered. Now you have lost. Now you know what it feels like to be powerless and ignored." Danny turned to face him. "Now, perhaps you are ready to be treated as equals and to treat others the same way." Voronek fell to his knees. In all his centuries of life, he had never knelt before anyone. But in this moment, there was nothing else to do. "Please," he whispered, "save us. I will do whatever you ask. The collective will agree to any terms." Just please, help us." Danny looked down at the kneeling senator. His expression softened slightly. "We never wanted to be your masters, Voronak. We only wanted to be your friends." He offered his hand and helped the alien to his feet. "Go back to your Senate. Tell him that humanity is coming. But when we arrive, things will be different. There will be no more laughing, no more dismissal. Every species, no matter how young or small, will be treated with dignity." "Yes," Voronak agreed instantly. "Yes, I swear it. Then we have an agreement." Danny pressed his wrist device again, and the sky returned to normal. The fleet vanished, hidden once more in its impossible space. "The Void Swarm will attack Velaris Prime in 5 days," Danny said. "Be ready. We will be there." Voronak hurried back to his ship, his heart pounding with something he had not felt in a year. Hope dot behind him. Danny Carter stood on the hillside and watched the alien vessel rise into the sky. He thought about all the people who had died while humanity waited. He thought about the cost of the lesson he had helped teach. Amy's voice came through his earpiece. "Do you think they have really learned?" "I do not know," Danny admitted. "But I hope so. I truly hope so." Above him, hidden from all sensors, the human fleet waited for his command. In 5 days, the galaxy would see what humanity could really do. And this time, no one would laugh. The sky above Velaris Prime was burning. The Void Swarm had arrived with their largest fleet yet. Thousands of automated warships filled the space above the planet like a dark cloud of metal and death. Their weapons charged, glowing with terrible energy. Below them, the crystal dome of the Senate chamber reflected the fire of distant explosions as the last collective defense ships were torn apart in the Senate chamber. The remaining senators watched the battle through massive viewing screens. Some prayed to gods they had not believed in for centuries. Others held hands with enemies they had fought for generations. Death was coming for all of them, and old disagreements seemed meaningless now. Senator Voronak stood at the central platform where Danny Carter had once asked for friendship. He thought about that day often. He remembered the laughter. He remembered the votes. He remembered how small and insignificant the humans had seemed. He did not laugh now. How long until their weapons reached the surface? Someone asked. "Minutes," came the answer. Voronak closed his eyes. He had done everything Danny asked. He had told the Senate about his visit to Earth. He had described the hidden fleet. He had begged them to prepare for humanity's return and to remember the promises made. Some believed him. Others thought he had gone mad. It did not matter now. In minutes, they would all be dead, and the truth would die with them. A young Velothian officer burst into the chamber, his silver skin pale with shock. "Hi, Senator. The sensors are detecting something. Something impossible." On the viewing screens, the image of the Void Swarm flickered. Points of light began appearing behind the enemy fleet. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. The sky split open. Ships emerged from nowhere, tearing through the fabric of space itself. Human ships, sleek in silver and impossibly advanced. They poured out of dimensional gates like water through a broken dam. Fighter craft swarmed in perfect formation. Battleships longer than mountains took position around the planet. Weapons platforms the size of small moons powered up with a humming that could be felt even on the surface. In 60 seconds. The human fleet outnumbered the Void Swarm 3-1. Commander Kevin Reyes, now Admiral of the United Human Fleet, spoke from the bridge of his flagship. The quiet dawn. All ships weapons free. Protect the planet. Leave nothing standing. The human fleet opened fire. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human weapons sliced through swarm vessels like light through shadow. Shields that had stopped every collective weapon held firm against the automated warship's attacks. Human pilots flew with precision that seemed impossible, dancing between enemy fire and striking with perfect accuracy. The Void Swarm tried to adapt. They had always adapted before. They analyzed human tactics and attempted to counter them. But the humans changed faster. Every time the swarm adjusted, the humans adjusted more. Every strategy was met with a better strategy. Every weapon was countered by a stronger defense. Dr. Amy Sullivan coordinated the battle from a command center deep inside the quiet dawn. Screens surrounded her, showing data from every ship, every sector, every moment of the fight. She had spent years preparing for this day. She knew the swarm's patterns better than they knew themselves. Alpha Wing, shift to defensive position around the Senate Dome. Beta Wing, push the enemy fleet toward coordinates 774. Charlie Wing, prepare the kill shot. Her orders flowed like music, and the fleet responded like a single organism. 6 hours after the battle began, it ended. The Void Swarm was destroyed. Not defeated. Not driven back. Destroyed. Every single automated warship had been reduced to floating wreckage. The dark cloud that had filled the sky was gone, replaced by stars and the gleaming hulls of human vessels. On the surface, the senators emerged from the chamber and stared upward in disbelief. Some fell to their knees. Others wept openly. The Krikstar ambassador, Chitrik, stood frozen in place, his mandibles hanging open in shock. A single shuttle descended from the human fleet and landed before the Senate Dome. The doors opened, and Ambassador Danny Carter walked out. He looked older now. His hair was fully gray. His face was lined with the weight of years and decisions. But his eyes were the same, calm, patient. Knowing behind him walked Amy and Kevin, along with dozens of other humans. They approached the gathered senators without weapons, without guards, without any display of power beyond their mere presence. Danny climbed the steps to the platform where Voronek waited. The two leaders faced each other, human and alien, separated by years of pain and pride. Ambassador Carter, Voronek said, his voice trembling. On behalf of the Galactic Collective, I offer our deepest gratitude. You have saved us. We owe you everything. Danny shook his head slowly. We do not want gratitude, High Senator. We do not want debts. We want only what we wanted from the beginning. Partnership, respect, friendship. He turned to address the chamber, his voice carrying across the crystal dome. We could have let you fall, he said. We could have watched the Void Swarm destroy your civilizations and then moved in to claim what remained. We are powerful enough. Perhaps we were angry enough. But we chose not to. He paused, letting the words sink in. Humanity believes that true strength is not measured by how much you can destroy. It is measured by how much you can protect, by what you choose to do when you have power over others. Chitrik, the ambassador who had called humans mold, stepped forward. His armored body shook visibly. Why? He asked. After everything we said. After everything we did. Why save us? Danny looked at him for a long moment. Because saving you was the right thing to do. Because cruelty does not justify cruelty. Because we hope that tomorrow can be better than yesterday, if we are brave enough to make it so. He reached into his coat and produced a small document. This is our offer. A new alliance. Not the Galactic Collective, but something different. Something where every species, old or young, large or small, has an equal voice. Where strength is used to protect, not to dominate. Where laughter is shared in joy, not used as a weapon. He set the document on the central platform. We will not force you to accept. We will not threaten you if you refuse. The choice is yours. It has always been yours. The senators looked at each other. For the first time in the history of the Galactic Collective, there was no debate, no argument, no political maneuvering. One by one, they stepped forward and added their marks to the document. The Velothians, the Crickstar, the Dominion, every species that remained, every senator who had survived. The vote was unanimous. When it was done, Voronek stood beside Danny and addressed the chamber. Today begins a new era. Today we learn what we should have learned long ago. That wisdom can come from unexpected places. That the newest voice may speak the oldest truth. That every being, no matter how different, deserves to be heard. He turned to Danny. We were fools. We laughed when we should have listened. I cannot undo what was done, but I can promise that we will never make that mistake again. Danny smiled, and for the first time in years, there was warmth in it. That is all we ever wanted. Outside the dome, the human fleet hung in the sky like a promise. Their work was not done. The Void Swarm had other fleets in other systems. There would be more battles, more struggles, more difficult days ahead. But today, something had changed. Something fundamental and precious and rare. Today, the galaxy had learned to listen. Amy stood beside Kevin, watching as the senators mingled with human officers. Old enemies sharing drinks. Ancient rivals laughing together. The scene was strange and beautiful and fragile, like a flower growing in a wasteland. Do you think it will last? Kevin asked quietly. Amy thought about all the history she had studied. The wars and treaties. The promises kept and broken. The endless cycle of hope and disappointment. Then she looked at Danny, standing among the aliens who had once mocked him, speaking to them with patience and grace. I do not know, she admitted, but I think it is worth trying. Kevin nodded slowly. Above them, the stars shone down on a galaxy that had changed forever. Somewhere out there, new threats were waiting. New challenges would arise. New tests of character would come. But for now, for this moment, there was peace. And in the Senate chamber, where humanity had once been laughed at and dismissed, the sound of laughter rose again. But this time, it was different. This time, everyone was laughing together.